Banning gay marriage is back on the menu. Banning sodomy is back on the menu. Banning contraceptives is back on the menu. And basically, we're having something like Taliban rule in America in a good way.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Gideon here. Let's talk about Nick Fuentes. I have been thinking about this guy lately, and I watched some of his content, not too much, but I've known of him for years, and I've been really curious about him. And from a spiritual standpoint, I had to even pray about him because you know what's crazy about us? We tend to judge things on an emotional level more so than rationally or even spiritually. For those of us who are God inclined, Jesus inclined. I look at someone like Nick and I've just been studying him and I really genuinely want to know if his motives are true and just. I don't exactly know everything that he campaigns for. I know some of what he campaigns for. And I've been studying him and I think I've come to a semi conclusion of what Nick is. I think Nick is a well intentioned person. I really do think so. I think he's a well intentioned guy. I think he's a young guy and he's a very smart guy. And he's growing in front of everybody. You know when you're growing publicly, it's a difficult thing. People don't understand that. But anything you say, wrong, right or wrong, people will remember for so long and they will hold that against you. But you can clearly see that the guy is moving the needle. I mean, he is banned from major platforms like YouTube, right? And yet he has such a huge following that when he goes on a platform like the PBD podcast, millions of views within hours. So people, whatever he's saying is resonating with the people. Now, good things and bad things could resonate with the people. But I think he's well intentioned. I don't think that he's the hateful person that people make him out to be. I think he has said some stupid things, but who hasn't, right? Haven't we all? If you really think about it, man, if you take our private lives and put it in public, we've all said some really dumb things. I'll be the first to tell you that I've said things that probably you guys will never hear, but I've said things I probably should never have said. And I can look back and be like, yeah, that was a crazy thing to say. And maybe I was fortunate enough that the public didn't get to hear what I had to say. But I look at someone like Nick and I clearly see that, God has given him a gift and an ability with speaking and reaching people. So my only prayer for Nick is that he be led by Christ so that his motives and what he does becomes more genuine. Because it's undeniable when you see someone that has talent and has the ability to move the needle, let's say. So you only pray and wish that they be used by God instead of being used by the devil because God gives you gifts, but you have to submit to him to be able to use those gifts accordingly, right? So that's my prayer for him. I wish him nothing but the best. I really do. I think he will continue to grow. What he becomes in the future, only God knows, but I am praying that he becomes a righteous servant for Christ in his journey. And that's the same prayer I would pray that somebody prays for me. So I would pray that people pray that for me because you have to understand that there's a lot of temptation along the way, and sometimes we take up positions and we have ideas, and sometimes we may become so caught up in our ideas that we initially had for the right reasons, and sometimes we stray because we become owned by our ideas instead of allowing us to be ourselves to be led by God. We become led by our emotions, our positions, and to some degree our ego because sometimes you want to be justified in your position more than you do want to be justified by the truth. I think every human being at some point has been guilty of this. Maybe not, because some people are better than others in behavior, I guess. But my point being, anyways, that we need to have grace for one another. And like I said, speaking of Nick, I think he's a very talented guy. I think he's witty. I think he's very knowledgeable. And I just hope that he continues to move in the right direction and that God uses him to do whatever positive or good that he could. And that is what I would pray for anybody watching this as well. So I don't know. I'm sure people have divided opinions. Some people like Nick, some people don't. Whatever it is, you guys let me know what you guys think about him and what you're hoping he can achieve in the future. As I always like to close the show, Jesus Christ is King. God bless. Hey, if you like my content, please feel free to subscribe and like. It helps with all this stuff. Growing a channel here, I guess this is part of the game. You have to encourage people to like and subscribe so that, YouTube pushes out your content. Because in the first place, YouTube is not very eager to push out content that does not fit. I don't want to say a degenerate narrative, but to some degree that is the truth. Because if you speak about silly things and promote silly things, I know it sounds very basic, but it's true. If you actually say some stuff and do some things that are ungodly, you tend to move faster. But God forbid that any of us ever succumb to such lows. Jesus Christ is King. God bless.